Chapter 2: Nation and Nationalism. The previous chapter stated that one of the major reasons behind the passage of the Rizal Law was the strong intent to instill nationalism in the hearts and minds of the Filipino youth. The life and works of Jose Rizal. Bayan or Banwa. Indigenous people concept of community and territory that may be related to nationalism. Nation, a group of people with a shared language, culture, and history. Nation building, a project undertaken with the goal of strengthening the bond of the nation. Nation state, a state ruling over a nation. Patriotism, a feeling of attachment to one's homeland. Sovereignty, the authority to govern a policy without external interference, incursions. Nation, state, and nation-state. Social scientists have fleshed out the nuances of nation, state, and nation-state. Nation. A nation is a community of people that are believed to share a link with one another based on cultural practices, language, religion, or belief system, and historical experiences. State. A state, on the other hand, is a political entity that has sovereignty over a defined territory. States have laws, taxation, government, and bureaucracy, basically the means of regulating life within the territory. This sovereignty needs diplomatic recognition to be legitimate and acknowledged internationally. The nation-state, in a way, is a fusion of the elements of the nation, people, community, and the state territory. The development of nation-states started in Europe during the periods coinciding with the Enlightenment. In the classical nation-states, the Europe began with the Peace of Westphalia in the 7th century. Many paths were taken towards the formation of the nation-states. In the classical nation-states, many scholars posit that the process was an evolution from being a state into a nation-state in which the members of bureaucracy eventually moved to unify the people within the state to build the nation-state. A second path was taken by subsequent nation-states, which were formed from nations. A third path taken by many Asian and African people involved breaking off from a colonial relationship, especially after World War II, when a series of decolonization and nation-building occurred. A fourth path was by way of succession by the people already part of an existing state.
Nation and nationalism. As mentioned, one major component of the nation-state is nation. This concept assumes that there is a band that connects a group of people together to form a community. The origin of the nation and concomitantly nationalism has been a subject of debates among social scientists and scholars. In this section, 3 theories about the roots of the nation will be presented. The first theory traces the root of the nation and national identity to existing the deep-rooted features of a group of people like race, language, and others, often called the primordialism. It argues that the national identity has always existed and nations have ethnic cores. In this essentialist stance, one may be led to conclude that the division of us and them are naturally formed based on the assumption that there exists an unchanging core in everyone. The second theory states that nation, national identity, and nationalism are products of the modern condition and are shaped by modernity. This line of thinking suggests that nationalism and national identity are necessary products of the social structure and culture brought about by the emergencies of capitalism, industrialization, secularization, urbanization, and bureaucratization. This idea further persists that in the pre-modern societies, the rigid social hierarchies could accommodate diversity in language and culture, in contrast with the present times in which rapid change pushes statehood to guard the homogeneity and society through nationalism. Thus, in the modernist explanation, nationalism is a political project. The third theory, a very influential explanation about nation and nationalism, maintains that these ideas are discord. Often referred to as the constructivist approach to understanding nationalism, this view maintains that nationalism is socially constructed and imagined by people who identify with a group. Benedict Anderson argued that nations are imagined communities. He traces the history of these imagined communities to the Enlightenment, when European society began challenging the supposed divinely ordained dynastic regimes of the monarchies. This idea was starkly exemplified by Industrial Revolution and the French Revolution. The nation is seen as imagined because the people who affiliate with that community have a mental imprint of the affinity which maintains solidarity. They do not necessarily need to see and know all the members of the group. With this imagined community comes a deep horizontal comradeship that maintains harmonious coexistence and even fuels the willingness of the people to fight and die for the nation. Anderson also puts forward the important role of mass media in the construction of the nation during that time. Fostered unified fields of communication which allowed the millions of people within a territory to know each other through printed outputs and become aware that many others identified with the same community. Second, standardized languages that enhance feelings of nationalism and community. Third is maintain communication through a few languages widely used in the printing press which endured through time.
When we say nation, it is a group of people with a shared language, culture, and history. Bayan is indigenous people, concept of community and territory that may be related to nationalism. Nation building is a continuing struggle up to the present. First anti-colonial revolution in Asia led by Andres Bonifacio and the Katipunan. Scholars note the important work of the propagandists like Rizal in the sustained effort to build the nation and enact change in the Spanish colony. The works of Virgilio Enriquez, Prospero Covar, and Jesús Salazar, among others, attempted to identify and differentiate local categories for communities and social relations. The indigenous intellectual movements like Psikolohiyang Pilipino and Bagong Kasaysayan introduced the concept of kapwa and bayan that can enrich discussions about nationalism in the context of the Philippines. Kapwa is an important concept in the country's social relations. Filipino interaction is mediated by the understanding one's affinity with another as described by the phrase ibang tao and di ibang tao. In the central concept arise other notions such as pakikipagkapwa, pakikisama, and pakikipag-ugnay, as well as the collective orientation of Filipino culture and psyche. In the field of history, a major movement in the indigenization campaign is led by Bagong Kasaysayan, founded by Jesús Salazar, which advances the perspective known as pantayong pananaw. Bayan or banwa. This is the territory where the people live or the actual community they are identifying with. Thus, bayan or banwa encompasses both the spatial community as well as the imagined community. Bayan clash with the European notions of nation during the Spanish colonialism. The proponents of pantayong pananaw maintain the existence of Greek cultural